Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us on this second episode of Dancing Around the World. So last week, we had an amazing conversation with a Bharatanatyam dancer from Peru, Ananga Manjari, and we explored all these different nuances about the dance form in a context outside of India. And I think what happens a lot of times is that when we have conversations about dance, we usually focus on very small aspects and we forget the intersections between all these different elements, such as culture, professionalism, intersections with other forms of dance, the place, the context, the nationality. There's so many things attached to this element. So today we have another very, very special, especially special for me, guest with us, Ipshita Rajesh. Hi, Ipshita. Welcome. welcome to the ArtsComeOnline platform. So, ArtsComeOnline was initially started by Shivani, and Shivani and I decided to collaborate in order to get some more nuanced conversations about dance, about anthropology, about culture, and based on different experiences and works of dancers from all around the world. So today we have Ipshita with us. Interestingly, Ipshita and I have done the same master's program. We've never met yet in person, but hopefully soon, hopefully soon. So Ipshita wears many, many different hats, and we shall be exploring all of these beautiful um, things that she does throughout our interview conversation today. So, just for the audience, feel free to engage with us through the chat box all along. We shall try to keep the interview to about 40 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes, post which we would love to hear your views, your questions, because I think it's so important that we engage with the wider audience and what you would like to know as well from Ipshita here today. Right. So, if you all have been watching the little snippets that we've been putting along, the main focus today shall be on Ipshita's practice between Bharatnatyam and clowning. So, Ipshita is also a clown theater. She's a clown artist. She's a theater professional as well. So, we'll start off by asking, so Ipshita, you're not based in India at the moment. You moved to Sweden a while back. So, how was it for you to navigate through the Swedish dance or performing arts scene? Because when I moved here in France, I know how different it was from India. So, what would you say are the major differences between India and Sweden in this performing arts field?
So I think I would like to begin by saying that I moved to Sweden in 2017, which was just about a year after I finished Choreomundus, the masters that Kavya and I did together. And I was still trying to figure out, what is it after Choreomundus, what happens, and trying to find this balance between being a researcher and being a performing artist. And until then, my identity had very strongly been I am an Indian classical dancer. I am a Bharatanatyam dancer. So I would say that when I moved to Sweden, I was still in the beginning. I was still sort of continuing with pushing that identity. That what I do as a profession is Indian classical dancing. What I do as a profession is Bharatanatyam. So I began with, of course, finding avenues to teach and finding avenues to perform in a very classical sense, in a very traditional sense. And soon I think I realized what started happening was I used to get calls from studios that said they were exotic dance studios, oriental dance studios, to teach. Or I would I would be given opportunities to perform on Diwali parties for Indian festivals. So in the beginning, I continued doing that, very specifically Indian or anything related to Indian. So that was sort of the identity. So exotic, let's say, Oriental and Indian. And initially it was fine, but after a while I sort of got tired of that that constant thing that she's a classical Indian dancer. So as if it is something, like every time people spoke about it, it was something very mysterious, very from another land kind of a feeling. And I started getting tired of that, and that's when I wanted to see what I can do with what I have. And in that process, I think when I started performing in non-Indian situations, it became that I started performing for very small audiences. So compared to India, when I was used to dancing on a stage with halogen lights on you and you can't see like 1,500 people in the audience and you can't see any of them, to dancing in a really small studio with 15 people, 50 people. So where you really begin seeing them. So that I think was the first, like trying something which I was not used to, which was so normal to do in India, like, dancing on a big stage, to coming to a smaller space and having the audience, like very intimate relationship with your audience as like performer and audience relationship. And then I think if I have to talk about the real difference when I started doing this, is when I found out the difference is that the audience were not always aware of Indian mythology, weren't I wouldn't use the word appreciative, but weren't, let's say, used to listening to Carnatic Indian music, weren't used to seeing this fantastic jewelry, silk costumes, eyes being done, really elaborate makeup. So everything was for them. And I realized the difference was that because of this exoticism, so to say, there was a distance. And what I was doing I was doing storytelling. I love doing Abhinaya more than Nritta. So I love doing storytelling aspects of Bharatanatyam more than the visualizing music through movement aspect. So I found that the audience found it difficult to understand what I was trying to say. Also because cultural symbols are so different, right? Let's say, for example, I was showing Rama and Sita getting married. So I would show that, okay, both of them, so Sita is the bride. And this is very culturally specific. And people would wonder, what does this mean? And we know that in a lot of places outside of India, the symbol for marriage is, let's say, wearing a ring, exchanging of rings. So things like this, these cultural nuances that are embedded in the dance, these layers were very difficult to understand without me having to explain. So I would go on stage or whatever the stage really was, and I would explain, one day long ago, a prince called Rama got married to a beautiful lady called Sita, and then do the whole thing in dance form. And that for me sort of lost meaning. If I'm anyway going to talk about it, why should I dance it? Like, I would rather that I dance it rather than talk about it.
Fair enough.
So that's where I started using words. So instead of using music, instead of using pre-recorded music that I had from India, I started telling the story on stage. So without music, or I would use just like a background music. And I would tell the story as I was dancing it. So use my words and then use my body simultaneously. So that's where it began. This noticing the difference between how people understand or not. And then what can I do about it?
And what was the feedback like? Like, did people actually relate more when you started using this kind of storytelling at the back? Was it easier for them?
I think it was way easier for them to understand the story itself. And that was my biggest problem, right? Why can't people understand that obviously this is Rama, obviously this is Sita, this is what is happening? And when I started talking about it while doing it, the understanding was much more. So I wouldn't, of course, say everything, but
Okay.
say a little, do a little, say a little, do a little. So definitely there was way more understanding and people could then relate to it. Otherwise, I remember there was one comment. I did this piece where I think I played 5 different characters.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I was dressed up as a woman, like we normally do as Bharatanatyam dancers. A woman would dress up as a woman, but play different characters. So that was a
Hmm.
very difficult thing for my audience to understand. That
Hmm.
okay, so you are 5 different women. It was
Hmm.
difficult for them to see beyond that. Maybe I could be playing a man. Maybe I could be playing a child. I could be playing a different gender. So the feedback once I remember I got was 5 different characters. So for them, Ravana was a woman, like a woman demon. Because I never told them the story, right? I just danced it.
Right.
So
Right. Right. Right.
from that to when I would say, like, and then the 10-headed Ravana came, who was the male demon. Like in whatever way I would explain it, they would then get it.
Right.
So I think the
Okay.
story was conveyed way better.
Interesting. And do you want to tell us a bit? So that was really nice. So you've already, in a way, touched upon how you adapted Bharatnatyam for a Swedish audience in a way. Could you also talk a little bit more then about like the infrastructure and stuff and how that is different? For example, in India, when you have to perform, maybe you have to approach people, pay them, and you have to perform. Whereas I'm guessing it's different in Sweden. Are there things to learn from the two different cultures about how performing arts are valued? Are they valued differently as per what you've seen in your experience?
Uh, so there is a huge difference in that sense. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, so let's say this way that I had a huge part of all the offers that came my way that were like, hey, you would get a great platform if you dance for us. We cannot, we don't have the budget, unfortunately, but we will give you free dinner. So
Yeah.
that was one part of
Yeah.
offers that came along, and I very
Hmm.
clearly said no to them because every platform is a great opportunity. It's what you
Agreed.
make of it. But I have to say that on the other hand, the infrastructure of it, funding, with like when you choose whom you say yes to, what kind of organizations you say yes to, I felt really good that they look at you as a professional. So while on one hand there was a certain group that would say, "Oh, but dance for free, and we have great people coming, and probably you can sign contracts later." But the other bigger chunk was people who really say that, okay, this is the budget. Is it okay for you? That was one thing. And second, I was very fortunate. In fact, within 2 years of moving to the country, like right from the beginning, I wrote funding applications. So there's a huge
Mm-hmm.
system of funding for the arts.
Mm-hmm.
So right from the beginning, I began writing applications, and I was so happy to know that in the second year itself, I got 2 grants from the Swedish Arts Grants Committee. So
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge difference. Yes, there is a system in India, there is a grant system in India, but I think the amount of grants that go out versus the number of people competing for it is where
Absolutely.
the
Hmm.
problem, not, I shouldn't say problem, but that's where very few people stand a chance.
Correct.
India versus here.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. Hmm. Nice. Okay, so maybe we'll move on to one of my favorite works of yours that I've seen, especially because it includes all these other people from the Koreamandas cohort. So we will be now showing you a small snippet of a very interesting exploration which Ipshita did with 2 other dancers. I won't say much. Let's have a look at it and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So, Shivani, can we please have the video?
Jump tarita, jump tari chakatari tai. Ta hata jump tarita, jump tari chakatari tai. Ta hata jump tarita, jump tari chakatari tai. Ta hata jump taka hata jump. Ta hata jump tarita, jump tari chakatari tai. Ta hata jump tarita, jump tari chakatari tai. Ta hata jump tarita, jump tari
So, firstly, body natyam. Why body natyam? Why is it called body natyam? And what was the inspiration behind it?
So I have to say this. Body Natyam was created by Natasha and Sarah, the two other artists you saw in the video. And Natasha and Sarah are from the same master's program that Kavya and I attended, and they were from the first cohort. So
Right.
they were the ones who started Body Natyam. And I'm guessing the name comes from body music and Bharatanatyam. So Natasha does percussive dances and she is fantastic with body music, and Sarah does Bharatanatyam. And they both were part of the first cohort, and they were the ones that created this as an exploration of how these two forms can meet, body music or percussive dances, under the umbrella of percussive dances, let's say. So they created lots of small experimental works even before I joined this. But where I saw this and I just absolutely fell in love with your work was the first Choreomundus International Dance Conference, which happened in 2018 in Hungary. And we were all there, and Sarah and Natasha did this Body Natyam workshop, and my jaws just dropped because they did it. So what, to tell you what Body Natyam is they explore rhythms in different ways.
Okay.
That was their work. So either with solukate, with the syllables, the rhythmic syllables that as we have in Bharatanatyam, with the dance movements, the nritta that we do, and with different kinds of percussive dances, I would say specifically body music that Natasha does, which is creating rhythms and sounds with different parts of your body. And why I really loved it is because I remember they took one small korbai, one small sequence of rhythmic syllables, and they let's say taught it to this group of, I'm guessing we were 50, 70 people, and everyone just got it. The way they taught it, everyone, it was not like a Bharatanatyam class. It was not, okay, keep your hands here. Okay, stretch out your hands. Now you have to do ta, ki, ta, which is 3 to the right, and then ta, ki, ta, 3 to the left. Keep your legs to the side, sit in Arab. It was not at all in the traditional way that we know. Of course, it ended up with everyone learning the movement, but the way they got everyone into it was fantastic because everyone was just moving to a specific rhythm. So they started with a 4, which was very easy to understand. And it was not takati, there was no specific syllable said. It was just everyone. Steps on their right, steps on their left, steps on their right. So from something so simple, the way they moved on to create this whole pattern of rhythmic syllables was what really floored me. And since then, I was like, okay, I really want to do something with them. And
Okay.
I've been since then. I tried to, different ways of getting them here. Of me going to Greece or Italy, we tried different ways of getting together and seeing what we can do. And finally, when I wrote this application for Konstnärsnämnden, which is the Swedish Arts Grants Committee, there was a 2-week studio stipend, they called it, and I was so happy that I got it. Because then I invited the two of them, and we had 2 weeks in a studio. We didn't have any thing to deliver. We didn't have you get this grant and you deliver this. It was a it was a grant for very experimentational kinds of work. So you don't have to deliver something, but you just have the space and you create. And that's how we began. So we didn't have any big plan of we are going to create a show where we just wanted to see what happens when 3 of us are together, especially because Sarah does Bharatanatyam and she does really good Bharatanatyam and she continues her practice regularly. Natasha does body music, and I was beginning to explore theater and what I can do using Bharatanatyam. So 3 of us had different ideas, but we met in one point, which was rhythms. So that was where we started, and that was like the base for this work of body natyam that you saw.
So what we saw was like a small piece of a much bigger something that you all created.
Yes, yeah. So the bigger piece was we just created a random story about friendship. It just happened. It was not a decided story. It just happened to be a story of friendship that came out. But we were exploring. We were exploring theater. So with the idea that rhythm is in the background, what can I say, or what story can I convey? So can it be a rabbit talking and an elephant replying? So it turned out to be the story of an elephant and a rabbit.
Yeah, because I noticed in the end you were the only one, ending with something a little more abhinaya, and Natasha was in the middle, and Sarah does like natyam, like nritta in front. So what is happening in that last moment? Why are the 3 of you doing different things, or what's happening there?
So I'm just telling this sweet little story of there was an elephant and there was a rabbit, and this became rabbit because I can talk about it later, but this was rabbit because some kids, when I taught them, they saw a rabbit in this shape. So then it just became rabbit.
Okay, nice.
It's just a little story about an elephant and a rabbit in a forest, and they couldn't understand each other. They were talking different languages. Rabbit was talking rabbit language, and the elephant was talking elephant language, and they couldn't understand what they were saying, so they were angry with each other. But at the end, they realized, I can talk through rhythms. So that's where Sarah and Natasha. So they started talking through rhythms. I can say something, and so it was this call and response kind of a ta hata jamte ta jamtari chakatari te. So we used this idea of call and response. So they started talking in rhythms, and then finally they became friends. So it's a very small. I mean, it's a silly story, but it's cute, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the part you saw at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Very, very interesting. Because I think often, like nowadays, a lot of Bharatnatyam is of course done with and fused with many different dance styles. But Bharatnatyam and body percussion, especially because Bharatnatyam also has so much based on rhythm, it's actually surprising that people have not worked more on this fusion, which really brings out the essence of rhythm in both the art forms, i.e., Bharatanatyam and body percussion. And I think body percussion maybe is not so well known. Like I personally didn't know it until I did a workshop with Natasha as well. So it's really interesting to see how the rhythm part really like stands out when you bring two such different art forms and try and like explore like what can we bring from both of them to do it.
And actually I should say that for me, what I really took from body music and the way Natasha does it and the way she facilitates a workshop is I see body music or body percussion as a very, very fantastic tool to explain rhythms in Bharatanatyam. Because
Correct.
there were some rhythms in my head. Of course, I've been doing Bharatanatyam for so long and I think I know a lot about rhythms. But just the coin just dropped at one point, the way Natasha did it. Just to visualize a three, a takita, which is not, let's say, a takita with a foot,
Correct.
but a takita.
Yeah.
It's a different way to visualize. It feels so different in the body. And you can create so many different rhythms with it, and you can understand. And there's so much, like, I think what I really missed was being able to do a lot of improvisation in rhythms. But I got more confident after I did this short workshop with Natasha. Because then I understood it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
And then I can play with it in a different way. I don't have this structure, this very formal structure of Bharatanatyam. But after understanding the rhythm through body music, I can easily take it and put it in Bharatanatyam. And that for me was a huge satisfaction, or like, wow, I can do this.
Beautiful. Okay, so we'll do a little fun section before we move on to the last two slightly more intense questions. So we have a little surprise rapid fire round, which is so the rule which you need to follow is that it's only a one word or one phrase answer. So yeah, so I'm going to start. I'm going to shoot. Okay. So what is your Sorry?
Do I get to pass and you come back to it later?
Okay, we'll do that. Fine. Okay. So what is your most favorite form of dance or movement practice that you like to watch?
Bharatanatyam.
Okay. Your favorite dancer?
Shijit Krishna.
Okay. Your dance idol or inspiration?
Shijit Krishna.
Okay. Your favorite dance item or piece to perform?
Anything related to Krishna.
To Krishna. Okay. If you had to learn a new form of dance, what would it be?
Tap.
Tap? Okay. Interesting. I might come back to that. Okay. One thing, the top thing that needs to change about the dance sector in India?
Professionalism.
Okay. One thing that you love about Indian dances?
Expressions.
Okay. If you were not a dance or theater artist or a researcher, you would be a
cafe owner.
Cafe owner. Okay, great. Wow. Okay, that was actually very, very rapid. Well done. Because when I asked Ananga these questions, she had 3 to 4 line answers for all of them. But yeah, that's really cool. So why tap? Why tap dance? What attracts you to it?
I think my love for tap came because of Natasha. Just the way the rhythms sound.
Yeah.
With those shoes striking on the tap dance mat or the board. Right. The way it sounds like someone is talking.
Right.
And I think the energy that is there in tap and the empowerment that I feel I would get by being able to improvise rhythms without having to think about and 8 will fit like this and like this and like that. Just being of course, it requires a lot of practice. I know there's a lot of background work in it, but I think that's what attracts me to tap.
Okay, beautiful.
I think I also got attracted because of river dance, of course. So.
Sorry?
River dance. The
river dance.
Yeah.
What is that?
The whole ensemble, the tap dance. It's a very famous tap dance. I think it's a company or it's a group.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. River dance. Okay. We shall check it out. Audience, please note. Okay. Lovely. Okay. So let's move on to the last section of the interview from our side. So now we'll come to the other side of you, the other thing that you've taken up and which has become such a huge part of your life, which is clowning. So I'm really excited to hear about this because I think this is also something which is very, very unique to you. And I don't know anyone who does Bharatanatyam and clowning both. So let's start off by giving the audience a little feel about what it looks like. What is clowning about? What does it mean to integrate the practices? And then we can have a little discussion about it. So Shivani, could we have the video snippet, please?
She loves me. She loves me. She loves me.
Lovely. How wonderful. So I think funnily the first thing I noticed was that sorry, but like the first thing which struck me, and I'm watching this video the second or third time now, is the fact that you're wearing such a simple kurta and everything, and yet you've maintained the essence of Bharatnatyam and everything, and then you have the clown and just the simplicity of it all. There's no like there's nothing jarring. This is such a beautiful, subtle, just I was smiling all along, that soft music at the back, and it was so beautiful. It was so moving, and there's not much happening, and yet there's so much being said, right? So sorry. So let's just wanted to share what I felt right now after looking at it. So tell us a bit about the intersection between your work as a clown and your work as a Bharatanatyam artist, and then we'll touch upon a little bit about the video specifically.
So I think the intersectionality is the physicality of it. So I would say that the precision in the physical way of expressing something. So how I see it is clowning, you can look at it as you're creating humor, right? It's comedy, it's physical comedy. And I love this quote by Rowan Atkinson, who has this short documentary not very short, but anyway, this documentary on YouTube where he talks a lot about physical comedy, and he says that it's not about the body, but it's about what you can do with the body. And that, I think, is what I take in both these practices. So in Bharatanatyam, now when I say Bharatanatyam, I'm talking specifically about Abhinaya, right? So in Bharatanatyam, you have a range of emotions you explore. And I think predominantly we explore Shringara, love, in different ways, which also a huge part of it is bhakti, devotion, right? So these are the different range of emotions, and mostly these emotions. It's not so often that you explore hasya or comedy in a very long or in an in-depth way. And that is what clowning does for me, really. So using the body, using the precision that there is, precision of where you're looking, at what time you're looking at your clowning partner, your co-actor, how are you interacting with the audience? All of that, when I began clowning, and I must say, I'm still a baby clown. So I'm still exploring a lot about the character that I have, my clown character, and how this whole thing works. But I think what I really understand is that clowning requires precision. You may do slapstick, you may appear to be sloppy, you may fall down on your ass a million times during a performance, and that's why the kids laugh or adults laugh or whatever, but it looks sloppy. It is not sloppy. And that really, you really need to work on it. There's a way you fall, there's a way you look, there's a way you do things, which is not evident.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think for people who maybe don't do clowning or who've not seen much of it, this was something really, really new, like even for me, because personally, like maybe apart from a birthday party or two when I was young, I have never really seen a clown show, and that's maybe not something which is very popular in India. So again, to merge two performing arts which are so different yet might have so many similarities when you really, start digging in depth into them. So that's a really nice insight on that. So coming to that particular piece that we saw, so really it's about a flower and what happens to that flower and stuff. So do you want to tell us a bit about how you went about choreographing it? Why the flower? How did you all decide what kind of movements would match clowning and Bharatnatyam? So
this was an experiment. This was the first time, let's say, clowning met Bharatanatyam for me. Correct. And this was in Odin Teatret in Denmark.
So this was not in Sweden. This was shot in.
Yeah, this was in Denmark last year, March. Yeah, last year, March. And I was there for a 38-day intensive theater or physical theater program. And we were 40 people from different parts of the world, like literally different parts of the world, living together in the theater space and working together from morning all the way until late evening. And they came from very different backgrounds. Some of them had just graduated theater school. Some were already practicing physical theater artists. Some were acrobats. Igor, who I worked with in this video, he's a clown and he's from Latvia. And a lot of his work is in hospitals. So he's a healthcare clown. And he drives even a program, like a teaching program for healthcare clowns. So, and we just hit it so well. I don't know what was it about his precision. So even when he does clowning, he's very precise. It looks like he's dancing when he does clowning. And I think that's what really attracted me to his form of clowning. And we just began discussing, hey, what would happen if we do this? And I remember there used to be informal gatherings at lunch, dinner, evening, whatever, just hanging around. And we would share different practices from our forms with all of these other 39 other people. And I remember there was once I was going around with all the hand gestures, and everyone was trying to do it. Some of them found it really difficult because you need to focus on telling your brain to tell your finger to bend. So
it's not easy. I know.
yeah. So it was in one of these sessions that, oh, this is a flower, and everyone seemed to just love to see this image of the flower blooming. And I think that's where it came from. I don't think we specifically had, again, a story. It just came from this, oh, this flower is so nice. Oh, this flower is so nice. This flower. What can you do with the flower? And we were on the floor. We were improvising. He was doing something. Oh, I picked a flower. He took it. And he started doing, she loves me not. She loves me not. And where it really met was, of course, he used Bharatanatyam hand gestures, but he also interacted with the audience. And that is his specialization as a clown, right? So you interact with the audience. So he gave the flower to an audience member. And then another audience member felt very sad. And it just happened. It was not meant to happen.
This whole thing, this part of giving it to the audience member and stuff was improvised, or was that something you had decided before?
It started off with being improvised, but of course when we filmed it, then it became like, we decided this is the number we do together.
Right,
so
right.
Just gave it to someone and saw another person who's very sad that, oh, you only gave her a flower, you didn't give me a flower. Oh, just a minute. I go and take another flower and give it to you. Then everyone wanted a flower. I want a flower. I want a flower. And then, instead of us picking a flower from the tree and giving each one, we all have the flower. Do you all want to do the flower? Can you all get your hands together? Can you do this? Can you open it? Can you smell it? You see? You all have a flower. So that's where it really met. I think this flower was the connection that we all had. So where on one hand a clown gives one girl and falls in love with her, and another one says, oh, you betrayed me. Then it ended up with everyone having the flower and everyone feeling happy.
Totally. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, lovely. So we're on 42 minutes. We're going to go on to the last question before we open the floor to the audience who has been showering us with a lot of love. So thank you everyone for your comments. I'm just going through them and we'll get back to them after this last question. Another big part of your profession, of course, is as a pedagogue, as what you teach and the workshops that you conduct and the way you disseminate or rather transmit, I must say, your art form to audiences. And you not only work with adults, but also kids and also dance and theater professionals. So could you tell us a bit about how you've incorporated Bharatanatyam while teaching, these people who do other performing arts? And also, have you included this intersection of clowning and Bharatanatyam even when you teach? Or is that something you would like to explore, maybe?
So I think when I teach, one thing that I have to keep in mind is that whoever I'm teaching is mostly not interested in learning Bharatanatyam as a form.
Correct.
And I think that is not even my objective when I teach. I don't look at myself giving Bharatanatyam courses and training people right from year 1 all the way to year whatever, however long. But for me, again, the essence is the expression that lies in the body. So when I teach and when I teach different groups, my approach is very different depending on who they are and what their purpose is. So let's say if I have to teach a group of children, they would run away if I ask them. So this is mixed audience, let's say, but most of them are Swedish children from the age of 5 onwards in schools. And they have, let's say, 1 hour in 3 months. So if I tell them to put their feet in one line and sit in Aramandi and stamp their foot, they're going to run away from the class and not even stay for 2 minutes. So what I really need to do is engage them in, uh, um, tapping into their imagination, fantasy, and kids love stories. So what I do is I use hand gestures. I use their imagination, so they create a story, and we go through the story using hand gestures. I don't teach it to them. I'm only there to show them different hand gestures, and probably they see different shapes. Like they saw a bunny rabbit here. Okay, so this becomes a bunny rabbit. So I don't tell them what each hand gesture really means. They explore their creativity, and there is no form except for trying to use these gestures, because that's all you can really achieve in 1 hour. Versus if I am teaching, let's say, a group of theater students, then I do touch upon the form of Bharatanatyam, because it is interesting for them, and you can talk to them about the history, about the structure, about the cultural differences. But it again, I think what people really enjoy so far, what I have seen in the courses or workshops that I have done, is the eyes, which is very difficult for a lot of people to move. So expression can be the whole face, but specifically, can you tell me I went there only with your eyes? So then it's training, like, out and there, and it comes easily to those who are, but some people really have it difficult to try and do this. So then I come up with different exercises that is not completely traditional. So I try to mix, and that's the reason I also attend workshops, theater workshops and mind workshops, to understand what are the classical exercises that one would do as a theater student, and then I try to mix them. So for example, there is this game that I play called Invisible Box, which is a classic mime exercise that one would learn in mime school. So I don't know, is Shivani joining us for this?
Let's play it. Yeah, let's play it. Can the audience join in too? Like, can they do it?
Absolutely. So I can't see the audience, so but feel free to join. So the three of us. Hi, Shivani. So let's say the three of us, we assume we all know the hand gestures that we have. So the game is this: I have a box, I open it. The only rule is a hand gesture comes out of it, that we all know. For the audience, of course, they can use whatever hand gesture they want, but those who can use any of the Indian classical hand gestures that you know. So the rule is that you have a box, you open it, a hand gesture comes out, you don't say anything, it becomes something, it can be anything, it goes back into the box, and I give it to the next person.
Okay.
So because I can't look at your eyes and looking at the screen, I will say who I'm giving the box to between Shivani and Kavya. Yeah?
Okay. But do we need to take the hand gesture which you give me, or it has no connection? There's no connection. Okay.
It can be, it need not be. Just don't think about it. Just do it.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say I start.
Okay.
Kavya.
Shivani.
Okay. Ipshita.
Thank you. And round 2 is there is no box. You take the gesture that I do, but you can transform it.
Okay.
So I start. Kavya.
Shivani.
Thank you. So in this way, and this is a game I play with both adults and children, irrespective of whether they're amateurs or whether they're professionals. Because these hand gestures are very weird. We know it, we love it so much because but not everyone understands what it is. So it's really weird. Why would you do this? What does this even mean? But it can be anything. It could absolutely be anything. Sometimes it turns out to be
Thank you,
things that
Shivani.
you should not do, and I won't do it in public space here. But it becomes that, and then it's your imagination. It can do whatever, and we end up building, especially when we have a huge circle sitting together. It becomes a story without even having to say it. It can be anything. You don't have to tell the story. It doesn't have to make sense at all. So you explore the space, you explore your physicality, and then of course you can add the face. Say that you have to use only your eyes to tell the whole story, or you look. There is a bird. You look at the bird and you pass the story. So we create stories together. So this is one exercise that I have sort of created using a very traditional mime invisible box exercise, but overlapping it with
Bharatanatyam. Yeah, with Bharatanatyam. Wow, that's amazing. So, well, I hope the people in the audience, if y'all are Bharatanatyam / theater / mime artists yourself, you'll have a really nice game to take back to and maybe try it out in your circles as well. So that's it was so interesting to try it out spontaneously. So I'm sure it's a lot of fun when you have a really big group and you don't know where it's going, right? Yeah. Okay, so audience, I hope you all are ready with your questions because we are done from our end and we have had such a beautiful insight into not two, but I realized also quite a bit into body percussion. So almost three different dance performing arts styles, and so let's see what the audience has to say. All right. So, well, Krishna Kumar asked, when are you coming to Vancouver to perform? Let's collaborate to get you here soon.
Yay! Let's go. Who's in?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you have plans to like go around and collaborate like once the pandemic is well under control? Like, do you have any plans of any future collaborations or explorations that you would like to do?
Definitely. I would love to collaborate. I have a few places in mind that I want to go both to learn, to hopefully do some sort of an internship. But what is definite is, so I will be beginning to work with a company called Pantomime Theater in Stockholm. By the end of this month, I will start working there. And they, of course, now nothing is planned because of the pandemic, but usually they tour a lot internationally. So hopefully that should be something that is on the cards.
Beautiful. And you're invited to France as well, so that we can do something too.
Yes.
We have a very interesting question from Rajeshri Bala. So she asked, how does one integrate a mathematical concept into this form to teach kids? And I think that is an amazing question. Clowning Bharatnatyam mathematics. How would you do it, Ipshita?
So I ran this project in a school in Sweden. It was called Dance in Ed, which takes from an Erasmus project called Arts in Ed. And what I did was I offered to teach any curricular subject using movement. So I won't say dance, but I would say movement and rhythm to teach curricular subjects. And the project was where I am not teaching it, but I'm teaching it in collaboration with the teacher, with the subject expert. So I am the movement expert and she or he is the subject expert. And we come together. But I tried this also. Maths was one part of the subject, like one subject that I took.
Okay.
And
can you give us some examples of how you all did it?
So some people can study or can learn when you write. Some people learn by listening, right? We have different ways of learning. So this focuses on both on listening, saying, and the body. So for example, if you have to teach 5 plus 3, and if you integrate the concept of body music, body percussion, so 5 would, let's say, be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a 3 would be 1, 2, 3. So you just get everyone together. So Kavya, let's try it. So if you do.
Okay.
And? Yeah. And let's keep repeating this, right? Pum, 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 and pum, 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 pum. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, go. Ready? Once more. 1, 2, 3, go. So, and you keep doing this.
I need to work on my body percussion. Yeah.
Once you get this, you sort of feel the number in your body. It's easier to say, or rather it's more difficult to understand when I say it, but when you keep doing it, you feel this beat in your body, this pulse in your body. And numbers can often be very abstract for kids to learn. What is 3? What do you mean 3? This number, this form doesn't mean anything. You can say 3 chocolates and then put 5 chocolates and then count them together. But another way is to really feel the rhythm, feel the pulse. So then once you have taught them this, because this is fun to do, everyone does it together. And then you say pum, 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 1, 2, 3. And then you say pum, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then put them together. 1, 2, 3, 4. That. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 3 plus 8. For example.
For example. Beautiful. Lovely. And I think, the pum does make a difference. Yeah. For kids especially.
Yeah. So it can be anything. Doom, doom, pum, pum, chang, chang, whatever. Kids can come up with weird sounds. Even adults can come up with weird sounds. But you don't have to tell them, say 1, say 2, or say ta, ki, ta. That is sometimes very restrictive. I don't understand what you mean by ta, ki, ta. But yes, I understand what you say when you say pum, pum, pum.
Fair enough. Lovely. Thanks, Rajeshri. We'll have a next question from Srijoyni, who asks, hi Sriju, by the way. She's from Calcutta. She asks, is there any crossover between the forms of art you have thought of experimenting with? I'm also not sure what Srijoyni and why. She adds, and why.
Is there any crossover between forms of art you have thought of experimenting with?
Srijoyni, can you explain what you mean by crossover? Because we did explore a lot about how she's integrated forms. So maybe you would like to explain a little bit more what you mean by crossover. In the meanwhile, we'll take one last question. We'll come back to Srijoyni's question once she's explained to us what she means. We have another question in the middle, which was from Kriti Shanbhag. So she asked, what was your first experience with clowning?
So here it comes. I had no idea I would do clowning. I remember in the first year, the first month when I came to Sweden, I was just going to all theaters everywhere saying, hey, I'm new here, I'm in Sweden, hello, hello, going and saying hello to everyone. And it was Maria of Klintberg, who works with Theatre Slava, one of my favorite theaters, who sat with me, spoke to me, and one of the things she said was, you have a clown presence. That was one of the ending statements she said. I was like, and I was still very new to the country. I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer. This identity, yeah. So when she said, you have a clown presence, I was like, what does that even mean? What do you mean you have a clown presence? And that stuck with me, And then when I moved to Uppsala, it was 2 years since I came to Sweden then. And I met Björn Dahlman. Björn Dahlman is the artistic director of Bharatnatyam, with whom I work right now. And he was the one who pushed me into the ocean of clowning without teaching me how to swim. And the Bharatanatyam dancer in me was like, tell me the rules. What should I do? Okay, if you do this, what should I do now? If you look at me, what do you want me to do? If a child does this, what should I do? I asked him a million questions. And he just said, just do. What do you mean, just do? So I was still so like, I need a choreography. I need to know the timing. I need to know what I should do. I need to know the story. From there to do whatever you want. Your guess is as good as mine. I clearly remember the first show that I did as his sidekick. In fact, it's exactly 1 year since I debuted my clown character today.
Wow, special day.
Yeah. So he just pushed me into this, and my experience or the way I learned clowning was just being his sidekick. Of course, he would slip in a rule here and there. Wait 3 seconds. What? Wait 3 seconds. Wait 3 seconds. So that my first experience was, what am I supposed to do? Very Bharatanatyam dancer mindset turned on. But now I've like sort of shaken that off, and yeah, I can interact with the audience. I can look at you. I have tools that I can use when I need to. So yeah, that is my first experience.
Lovely. So we'll just come back to the last question from Srijani. So she says, she explains herself. What is the next thing you think of exploring that might be on your mind but you haven't tried yet?
Aerial. I don't know what's the English translation. It's called Tig. So
yeah,
you have
aerials.
Aerials. Yeah. So that is something I would really love to explore. So I think the closest would be rope Malkham in India. But any form of aerial. So I want to feel this lift.
Oh, lovely. So you mean like integrate Bharatnatyam, but like and clowning maybe, but from a aerial point of view? Or
I would not say that what I'm doing even now is integrating or doing Bharatanatyam and doing clowning, but I draw from these practices. So I look at what I do more from a very performing arts or physical theater perspective. So I see being up in the air is something that I want to try and experiment with to see how I can integrate. So it gives you dynamics of space as well. So if a story requires, I would love to be on top and talk to a character down there.
Beautiful. Lovely. Okay. Thanks, Shriju, for your question. And with that, we've answered the audience questions. Thank you, audience, for some really thought-provoking questions to Ipshita. That was really lovely. So just to wrap up, I think some of the big takeaways have been really like to see how seamlessly you kind of adapted 2, 3x number of different elements from the art forms that and like you rightly said, maybe we shouldn't even see it as integrating, but rather just something of its own. Why are we don't need to call it or silo it into something, but just let it be a performing art of its own. And I think that has a lot of value in itself. And I think it was also very interesting to initially touch upon how different the Indian performing arts scene is as compared to Sweden. And I think this is something we really, I agree with you, and I can see it here in France as well, and how much, there's lots to learn from each other. So I guess this is something which we will hopefully carry back someday, maybe, if we work in India and really shake things up a little bit, like pay us, we don't want your exposure. Well, anyways, that's a different conversation altogether. But anyway, so thank you, Ipshita. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences, your work with clowning, with Bharatnatyam, and I hope everyone has a lovely evening. Thank you so much for joining us from Sweden, from India, from all over the world. Much love to everyone. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kavya.